Okay, today I wanted to talk about a new comic I've been reading. I think this one is a web comic similar to Legends of Demons and Gods. They are very, very similar in story as well, but just in terms of style and web comics and everything like that, I think these are all either from a similar website or at least in the same theme. I think they're both Chinese, possibly Korean. I honestly don't know. I think it has a very Chinese feel to it, so that's what I'm guessing. Hopefully, I'm right on that. But basically, yeah, I've been reading this one, and I kind of wanted to talk about it because it had a lot of similarities with Legends of Demons and Gods, and I wanted to talk about that. But also, it kind of deviates from this a little bit, and I just wanted to talk about basically what makes this story work, what doesn't work, because I do think it, at least the initial part, it does not do as well as Legends of Demons and Gods. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that as well. So to start off, what we have is basically we are in a martial arts world where very quickly we're introduced to the main character. So we have the main character, and then we're almost immediately introduced to a few side characters. And these side characters are something that you're going to notice is like, this seems very, I'm trying to think, very cookie cutter. Yeah, it basically fits the cookie cutter model for all this stuff basically. So what we've got is we've got a girl. Basically, you're introduced to a classroom. So we're immediately in the school setting, which is a great setting because it gives us a lot of tools to work with. So we're introducing a class setting. So basically, we've got a teacher, of course, teacher here who, and let's see, and then with the class we've got the girl. Basically, we'll call it the girl. She's the attractive girl that everyone in the class likes. We've got a bully, and then we've got others. Basically, this is kind of the main thing. Sometimes you'll have some other ones in this. I don't think we really have any of those just yet. Sometimes you'll have like the hot guy, basically, or the popular guy, or something. Sometimes this is combined in with the bully, sometimes it's not. It really kind of just depends so far, but this one's not really used in the story. And there's a few other ones. There's the nerdy guy. Basically, these are kind of some high school stereotypes, which are stereotypes based on real life. So immediately we're introduced and we're set up with this dynamic. So we kind of understand, okay, this is where it is, and he is not good at, not strong, basically. Not strong, so we're introduced to that aspect of it. We're also introduced as far as a world, as an introduction to the world, basically how we immediately notice, of course, that this is a martial arts school. So basically from there, we know how all conflicts and rank and status and all else in society are established through their martial arts strength. And that's kind of something that, again, it's pretty straightforward, but I kind of want to just highlight what these techniques and what these ways are doing. So when you're introducing your own story, you can kind of use this as a model to see, like, okay, this is what's being communicated to the audience, basically. Okay, this is our setting. This is how we're going to, this is what kind of story is this one? What makes this story different from Sword Art Online? What does this difference make this from Naruto? What difference does this make from or in High School Host Club? Basically, all of these ones are very, and basically this is the initial presence we're getting basically for. We're getting, established basically very, very early on. We have 3 types of schools, basically, different martial artist aspects that you can be. You've got, like, I don't know, fire, I think fire, dragon, and star. Basically, these are the different ones. This one's strong, this one's strong, this one's not very strong. So from there, so basically we are established with this, and we're introduced to this basically very strong early on. The teacher then is does some showing off in the first chapter, and what this kind of does is it basically immediately sets up an audience. So we go, hey, the main character is here. He cannot destroy rock, basically, or blow up a boulder. We'll call it that. He can't blow up a boulder. But then basically we're introduced to the teacher who can. And basically what we got here, we have immediately established, kind of what I've talked in some of the other episodes, is this is the progression, basically, promise that you're showing off to your audience, basically. Because what you're advertising to the audience from here is that, hey, our main character is here, and this is what's possible in the world, and we as the audience want to see him build up to this idea. So what we're setting up is a progression arc. Let me see. We're setting up a progression arc. Let's see here. I need to turn that to sleep. Progression arc. So basically what we've got here is we've got a way to, this is kind of the promise. So this is what this is communicating, whether you realize it or not, communicating to the audience is this is kind of what this story is about. So this is not a drama, when this is not going to be one where we're, diagnosing very, very complicated, nuanced interpersonal relationships. This is one where we're looking at martial arts strength and basically this is how our conflict is going to be, resolved. Basically, it's going to be through rank and status. All of this is established through the martial arts school and strength and everything like that. And from here, we get to see kind of what is established as far as what is possible within this world. And this is kind of a progression. So the main character and all these students, of course, are weaker than the teacher. So this is what it immediately, and this is from like very, very early on in like the first few chapters, this is what it immediately sets up. So what this communicates is it gives you some indication of what the story is about. It's very, very open in terms of you immediately kind of go, oh, pretty sure I've seen this story before. And that's kind of what I think this a weakness aspect of this story is a decent amount, is that it's not really trying to reinvent the wheel. Basically, what we're getting here is the wheel 1.1. We're not getting, it didn't invent 1.0. It's not going to be a 2.0. It's just 1.1, basically. And this is the kind of story we're going to get, which is not bad. It depends on what kind of story you want to tell. But at the same time, there's a reason why these stories are popular, and the reason why all these stories kind of look the same is because the sameness that they're all copying is working. And that's what we're going to kind of just talk about from here. So we do this, we introduce this. It also introduces levels very clearly. I'll probably go and do another video later and talk about levels and what it does. But basically what you're doing is you're saying, hey, we've got you guys, basically it helps solidify this. So this guy is it's a rank 1, we'll call it. And then the teacher here is rank 5 or something like that. And they'll come up with some sort of ranking scheme basically from here. In Legends of Demon's God, they came up with something more creative. Usually it's not rank 1, rank 2. Usually it is a lot more creative from there. Usually it'll be, but basically what it breaks down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then it becomes, you become a super, basically. And then you've got a super 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Basically, you get the idea. And then you get it super duper, basically, over here. Similar to Dragon Ball Z, how they had Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan God 2, and kind of got a little bit absurd at that point. All of these usually end up getting a little bit absurd after a while, unless you did like something like a reset, which I don't think I've seen anyone actually do. I don't think they actually will, but basically you just keep leveling it up and go from there. So this is, but basically what we're just highlighting is this is what the story immediately introduces to us. So we've got this, we've got levels. So basically we've got an understanding of this is where, this is where our main character is at. This is where the teacher is at. And what this does is then ask the question, what is beyond that? So if you can blow up boulders on level 5, what can you do on level 10, or what can you do? Basically gives you this promise of potential, basically. And this is what a lot of progression arcs really work on, is this idea, the promise of potential. Is basically, if you continue in the story, you get to watch the main character grow and get to do cool stuff like this, basically. And probably then, let's say, so the story starts off, we get introduced to a bully who's basically lording over the other clans, and he's a terrible bully. So basically this immediately sets off Pretty good dynamics as far as conflict, basically. So we have our main character who's minding his own business, and the bully comes up, and we basically this kind of helps introduce our first antagonist, and it helps basically set the conflict, basically. So once what you do want to do is this is kind of how a lot of stories will engage the audience as far as it goes, and what that means is basically it's making them invested in the story. So what it is basically, once upon a time, there was a man, and he's walking down a street. Let's see, we'll just do a street here. There's your yellow lines. A street, and he comes across another man. Here we go, in an alley. Here's our alleyway. And basically this other man is, let's see, he's about to punch another guy. He's a very short man, so ignore the drawing. And basically from here, this guy is beating up. So we'll call this guy A, this guy is B, and this guy is C. And so we'll give him an X because he's getting beat up. So basically from here, what this does is B is beating C up, and you can see it's pretty severely beating. It's not like a fist fight. He's just beating him up. And basically then A is going to come up here, and he's going to say, stop, of course. And then B is going to immediately turn and then fight A. And basically what this does is, this is a very, very simple, is now this is how you make your audience care about A. Basically. That's all he's done, is because, listen, we don't know anything about A, but we hate B. And A stands against B. Therefore, we like A. And I talked about this in the last one with kind of engaging your audience with a villain. This is what happened with Tyrion. This is what they did with Captain Sobel or Lieutenant Sobel and Easy Company and Band of Brothers. And basically from here, this is kind of how it works. And this is a formula that you can really stretch. So it doesn't have to be, maybe C isn't the one getting bullied. Maybe it's someone else. Maybe A is getting bullied, and we don't like to, basically it sets off our justice meter with this, it's crazy, infuriating, we don't like this. But basically, you can kind of see how this plays out. And basically this is a way of engaging the audience and making them care, because ultimately the goal of your story is to make the audience care about what happens next. This is the most important thing, because if they do not care what happens next, they stop reading your story, and it's done at that point. So basically what this does is it sets up the potential, and then we can chain link our potential conflict down the road. So what happens is, okay, so A is over here, and he saves C, and then B runs off, and B's like, I promise I'll come back and beat you up later. And then C goes, oh no, he's really going to come back and beat you up later. What have you done? You should have just let him beat me up. There's one aspect that can play out. And basically from there, we can see, okay, we can see how it's going to come from there. It's going to continue to escalate. And basically then what they usually try and do is they try and have a handoff as far as arcs. That way it kind of goes like this. And basically then this kind of continually pulls the audience in as far as the plot line. Basically as far as the plot. So you kind of got a mini arc 1, arc 2, arc 3, basically, or encounter, whatever these are, whatever you want to call them, basically. And you overlap them so that this way, this could be kind of like a romance arc. This could be a fight the bully instance. These don't necessarily, I'm saying arcs, but I probably should be meaning a bit more like instance or encounter. And this is what's going to help propel your story. Basically, this is and then. And basically, you're interweaving your stories together, so that way all these characters come in at different moments and pop up at different moments. So that way it becomes a lot harder for the audience to see, oh, okay, now this is what happens in this part of the story. It also is a lot more natural if you kind of weave everything together, so that way the audience can't really tell. It's just one plot line. And this is what you kind of want to operate with from here. But yeah, and then I kind of wanted to talk about, so one aspect that the story doesn't really do well is it really, really, really tries off the bat to make the two female characters just really, really like the main character because of reasons. And this is one where I think it kind of just fails the logical test. And a logical test is probably will end up renaming this one, but basically this is just does it seem legit, basically? So if one character does something and something happens, does it seem like the character, have they earned the outcome? Oops, there we go. Have they earned the outcome? So basically from this one, what it kind of, a lot of it, or some of it boils down to, and one aspect of it where it comes into play is basically it's just, does it feel like the character is earning this, or does it feel like the plot is making this happen? So who initiates, who causes this to happen? And so far I feel like a lot of it does, it initially starts off with the plot almost making it happen, where the main character kind of just goes from point A, we're kind of going from A to B to C to D, and then we win. Basically, that's kind of the idea, where this seems much more of a he wins because he's the main character as opposed to anything that he does. You know, there's no intentionality, there's no guiding factor, it's just kind of going from one to the other. And what it does is it basically kind of sets up our main character in the story to where it doesn't really feel like he's earned it, more or less. It's kind of like, listen, you just kind of got a participation medal and moved on. Now you're strong, and this is kind of the tricky part, is that he's strong, he does fight and defeat people, but it doesn't, it's not, it's more of he's just kind of going from one thing to another. There's no overall plan. There's no calculations. He's just kind of like, oh no, something happened. Let me go solve that. Oh no, something happened. Let me go solve that. Oh no, something else happened. Let me go solve that. And kind of go from here. Again, A to B to C to D, basically, and then he wins from there. So there's this aspect. The other aspect is in this story, there's almost no world building at all in the first few chapters. I think, honestly, starting off with too big of a world is kind of a mistake, because you really want to get the audience just interested, but basically I don't really know anything about the world. There's no all we literally know in the first part of the story is that there are ranks, there are some lords, martial arts equals everything, and then yeah, basically that's it. And they're at this little camp, and he's in the academy, and there's at this camp, basically. And then, well, actually that's later, they go to the camp, but basically that's martial arts equals everything, basically. And that's kind of the only aspect of world building that we've done so far, which again I don't think is necessarily need to immediately escalate to kind of giving a history lesson of everything or anything like that. But what you do need to do, in my opinion, is basically you need to start off with something. So basically where the story starts to get good is probably chapter 60, I think it was 60 or 70 plus. And then it starts to actually get pretty good from there. It actually starts to draw you and get a little bit more interesting. The problem is that's chapter 60, chapter 70. That's not acceptable. Like, that's not, you're going to lose a lot of people like that. So you need to figure out something better to do. So what it does here, it basically gives more story about his town, our main character's town, the village. It kind of starts to define and flesh out a lot of bit more, who the people are. You get to see, more people as opposed to just literally just the classroom. You start to see other villains. It basically becomes a lot more fleshed out. And what I mean by that is what you want to always establish, and this is something that video games are always trying to work at, is that when a world seems most real is when stuff happens without the main character, basically. When there are stuff in the background that's happening. So this is what it is. This is where you have villains who have had plots brewing for a long time. The plots happen, their plans happen without the main character, basically. So that means that it's going on in the sidelines. So basically there are other motivations, other characters that are competing with each other. And basically this helps basically all of this helps contribute to make your world seem real, because as you may have noticed in the real world, people are running around doing all kinds of stuff that they want to do from there. And that kind of helps build into this. So this is something that it doesn't really do a good job of. I think it should have started off doing a little bit more of this, maybe shown the village where the main character's from, kind of given their dynamics, the reason why it's important he goes to the school. All of this is kind of stepped over in the initial part, because it basically goes, all right, he's out of school and it's martial arts, and here's the bully, and here's the attractive girl, the cute girl, here's the bully guy, like there's this types, and we're gonna rank up basically. And this is kind of where it starts off. So I mean, you kind of get the idea that this is a cultivation story, which I learned that some of these are called. But there is this aspect where I think you need to do a little bit more as far as story building in the beginning, because remember, you want to pull the audience in. And so far, all that he's really got is this kind of cartoonish, very one-sided villain where he's just like, I'm a bully and you guys are peasants, so I'm a bully you. And I think that doesn't really work out in the long run. It eventually comes to pay off, because eventually we start getting villains with a bit more at stake, a bit more motivation at stake, basically. But until then, that's kind of the problem from there. So I'm probably going to talk a little bit more about this in the next one, but I hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you in the next one.